Welcome to our very first episode of From the Fridge, where Leon and I will be tasting some pale ales. So why did we choose pale ales for our very first episode?
I think for most people, it's the first modern craft beer that they would have tried. It's when you think of breweries and their kind of flagship beers are the ones that they get established, particularly in countries where craft beers are already established. Most people associate craft beer with these styles. You know, there's some classic craft beers in America, the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And I guess you could say that's the one that kick-started the American craft beer movement. And so it's a great beer for us to start our journey in terms of trying out beers and talking about them.
Do you want to go into detail about the characteristics that make a pale ale?
Why not?
Why not?
That's what we're here for.
I would say pale ales are hop dominant beers, and
we might say hop forward.
Hop forward or hop dominant. Extremely aromatic, bitter, but I wouldn't say that that's the main component.
Overwhelmingly,
not overwhelmingly bitter, and there is sweetness from the malt.
But it takes a background. What do they call it?
Backseat.
Backseat. That's right. It takes a
backseat
to the hops.
To the hops, yeah.
And that's often why when you try a pale ale, they might say, "Oh, these are the hops," but they probably rarely talk about the malts.
Yeah.
So the malts are just very basic, light, bready type of malts. They're nothing really too complex, and they just form the foundation on which people, brewers, will build the hops. The hop characteristics on top of.
It can be a bit caramelly, but just
very faintly.
Faintly. Depending on how the brewers make it,
generally between 4.5% to about 6% alcohol. Most of the ones in Indonesia
are around 5%.
5% for tax reasons.
Tax bracket reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
But around 5%. And that, I mean, we say that's part of Indonesia, but it's probably more broadly as well. Sitting roughly around 5 to 5.5%. ABV. So it's not like a heavy alcohol beer. It's a happy, hoppy medium.
So let's try the beers.
Yeah, let's go.
So we're trying out our first beer, and it's the Little Creatures Pale Ale. Little Creatures is a brewery from Australia, and I think they started about 20 or so years ago.
So they're, I think, a bit over 20 years. And so they're from Western Australia, from Fremantle, that area. And I think in Australia, a lot of people consider them probably one of the first, at least one of the first that many people were aware of across Australia, alternate options to the large established breweries that were just pumping out the same boring 1990s macro lagers. This was, the first one of the first that I remember, along with a few smaller ones. But they do raise some interesting questions in 2022 about what is craft. They are owned by Kirin, a Japanese multinational corporation, and I think maybe Kirin's in turn owned by Mitsubishi or whatever. Maybe someone can correct me on my corporate knowledge or lack of. But it's brewed on a massive scale as well, and so for some people they might think that disqualifies it from craft. But for Indonesian purposes, for local purposes, I think we can consider this craft. There's enough point of difference between it and
commercially available green bottled macro.
There's enough point of difference there.
Indonesia,
I think we'll investigate that point of difference in the next few minutes.
Yes, let's crack it open.
All right. Oh, what's something else about this beer that we were...
it's actually bottle conditioned, which means they allow the yeast to ferment again.
The yeast is
ferment.
active inside the bottle. Possibly for carbonation purposes. So when you pour it, there may be some... we can see it. A little bit of residual yeast at the bottom. Careful as you pour it if you don't like the yeasty boys. There we go.
So we've just poured 2 glasses of beer, and as you can see...
uneven.
as you can see, Leon's is a bit clearer,
Yep.
and mine is a tad hazier
Yeah.
because I
Opaque.
think you have some yeast in here.
Yes.
Which I'm excited to try the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how shall we go about drinking this? Shall we go through the BJCP guidelines?
What is the BJCP?
The Beer Judge Certification Program, and they give a guideline on how one judges beer.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it goes with aroma first, and then appearance, and then flavor, mouthfeel, and then our overall impression. So
Yeah.
let's try and do that.
And they're pretty useful for understanding what your expectations are for each style of beer. I mean, there's, I don't know, I've lost count of how many they have, but it's worthwhile checking them out.
Yeah. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind with aroma?
It's not as hoppy as I initially anticipated.
Do you smell apricots? For some reason, that's
Stone fruit?
Yeah, stone
Yeah.
fruit.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that pops into my head, and I was hoping for it to be tropical.
Mm. I mean, I love that color. It's like a medium gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. No, just like a good medium gold. Nothing too dark, not copper, and not too straw-like.
Yeah.
Just a good gold. Which I think, for me, when I see a pale ale this color, I'm like, yeah, they've added some slightly different malts to your normal, like maybe a caramel malt, caramel into it.
Yeah. Can we swap?
Sure. Oh, the yeast.
Oh, esters.
Actually, there is a bit of a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually a big difference because this has like a crisp mouthfeel at the end of it, and this one has a bit of
Do you think that's perceived by the way you look at it?
No.
No?
For
You
me,
feel it?
I
Okay.
feel it. I feel it.
Okay. Thank you.
I like a bit of a cloud in my mouth.
Okay.
So tell me about what flavors.
Well, it's not as bitter as I also thought it would be.
Yeah.
It's actually very balanced.
Yeah.
It's very balanced. So you have almost I feel like the hop note is a bit pine-like a resinous one, which would say something like one of those Pacific Northwest Chinook or Cascade hops. What?
You know what? I don't know. The thing that comes to my head right now is I said that it smelled like apricots, and when I taste
Changing a bit.
when I taste it, it's not there. The sweetness is there, but mild, and I feel like the bitterness is barely there.
No, not bitter at all. I wonder how. I mean, yeah, it's not as bitter as I anticipated.
Yeah.
I used that by design. It's been a while since I've had this.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it was a beer that I had quite a while ago in Australia.
Yeah.
Back when I was first realizing there were better options.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I like it. It's a well-made beer.
I feel like it. Yeah, I feel like it could be a bit hoppier.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more in terms of the hop
Yeah.
freshness.
Do they say what hops they use? Oh yeah, Cascade and Chinook. Did you cheat?
Possibly.
They say this pale ale has unique hoppy balance and refreshing flavors. I agree on all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
What's your overall impression?
In terms of, I mean, it is balanced. It probably could be a bit hoppier. This is nothing outstandingly unusual. It's just, I would recommend it if somebody said, hey, I want to try a pale ale.
Yeah.
You don't want to give someone something that's too experimental or too
Yeah.
wacky.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think.
That's a good entry point.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, beer number 2 from Lion Brewery. Ding, ding, ding.
The Is that in frame? I don't know.
Yeah, here.
It's my first time on camera.
Lion Brewery is
Singapore.
from Singapore. Yeah,
They're Singapore based.
Yeah. But they
brew under
license here in Indonesia. And this is their first release in Indonesia, and it is their pale ale.
Yep.
Like we said.
Yeah. So they're all pale ales, and I think the reason, if you notice a pattern in the beers that we've chosen, we've started with overseas, and maybe when you say overseas, you say multinational beer.
Yeah.
Now we're moving to a regional option.
Yeah.
Remember all three are available in Indonesia.
Yes.
So this one's a regionally available beer, which is brewed in Indonesia, but Singapore owned.
Yes.
Yeah, Singapore owned.
Yeah.
But yeah, what we want to do is just compare it with
the previous one.
Yeah.
So it's open.
They're both pale ales, but hopefully, as people experience more and more pale ales, pale ales can have different hop characteristics, and
malt characteristics,
and that can make for a vastly different experience.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop talking and we're going to start drinking.
Experience this.
Yeah.
So we've just poured 2 glasses of.
And they're pretty much same, although I gave you a bit more this time. This one has a little bit of water from rinsing it.
Yeah.
One of the things that is interesting is what?
Yes, the can. I mean the aluminium bottle.
Well, it's unusual,
I think it's
right?
cute.
Yeah.
I think it's really cute.
What do you think some of the other reasons might be?
Well, I know for a fact that when you're, what was the word? Traveling logistically, cans or aluminium.
The lightest form of packaging.
Yeah, it's a better way. It's a more environmentally friendly way of packaging beer because it's not as heavy. It's lighter than bottles. It's
recyclable.
It's recyclable, and it's also easier to chill.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like me. So it's and it's a novel way of packaging.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it. It's cute.
I'm
sorry. I'm just going into the aroma. I love the aroma. Smell it, please.
Okay. Right. Oh yeah, that's very
so
tropical.
Tropical. Very tropical.
Yeah,
I'm loving the aroma.
I feel like the aroma is way more there than the little creatures. And
way more in here than the little creatures.
And sometimes maybe this is the thing about craft beer is that it doesn't go through the same preservation processes as some of your mass-produced beer that gets sent around the world, or it's homogenous. It's the same thing week in, week out. I'd like to think that they make the same thing week in, week out under all the different labels.
Yeah.
But some of the processes, lead, and the fact that they're small scale production, lead to it being much fresher by the time you get it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case here.
Yeah.
It's super fresh. It's really nice. It has a really nice aroma.
It is. That caught me off guard.
How so?
Hang on. I'm going to take another sip.
It's a little bit dry. I think it's quite dry. The finish is very dry.
Yeah. Very crisp.
Yeah.
Very crisp.
Now you might love that, or you might think, actually, I want a little bit more juiciness or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't feel like. I feel like the mouthfeel in the little creatures was more rounded. Yeah, rounded was the word.
Yeah.
Reading my mind. But yeah,
it's. Sorry,
married. But yeah, it's a very clean, very crisp. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah,
I think maybe that would be more suited to the tropical climates.
Also, I don't detect any bitterness.
Minimal bitterness. There is a little bit. I don't think it's nothing. Yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit there afterwards. Overall impression?
I would sit on the beach drinking this. I wouldn't mind. Wouldn't mind it at all.
Sure. The beach in Ancol?
Okay, let's not make fun of.
No, I wasn't. I was saying like regional. So, it's a regional beer.
Color-wise, I think it's pretty close to the
bit lighter.
Creatures.
I feel like it's a little bit lighter, a little bit more pale, a little bit more pale than the little creatures.
Okay. Little creature's right there.
Oh yeah, that's true. Here's one we prepared earlier.
It's the same color.
Oh, it's a little bit paler. Look.
Yeah, tapped it.
Yeah.
Fine.
Enough to make a difference
Yeah.
to the BJCP.
I
Yeah,
like that it's
I
first.
like it. I like it. I think for me a little bit more juicy. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, juicy is synonymous to like IPAs and hazy pale ales. Whereas I feel like a pale ale, I don't mind it being crisp.
Okay.
That's me.
Shall we go to the
Let us go to the número dos, tres.
Tiga.
Tres.
Tiga?
Yeah, number tiga. Okay, now we have beer number 3.
Du-du-du-du.
Wait, gotta. Yeah. Kura. Kura
Means.
means turtle.
So we have
And
a
they
little creature, we have a lion, we have a
and now
turtle.
we have a turtle.
Could be
How
a
cute.
Greek fable.
Jadi kura-kura ini dari Bali, and they are the first craft brewery here in Indonesia.
They were the first to really package them and send them out.
Yeah.
And it was was it early COVID? So it was a real tough time for food and beverage. And so they went ahead and just sent them out.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's Kura.
Yeah. And I think they were the ones that really started to educate the masses about craft beer. I feel like.
Yeah.
Because
a broader public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An Indonesian broader public. I think they did a pretty good job with that. Yeah. All right.
So they're Bali based, and they're owned by a Bali based family.
Yeah.
And brewed on site in central Bali.
Yes.
Okay. What else is there to say about Kura? They've got 2 beers available at the moment.
Yeah.
And as far as we're aware, there's some more in the horizon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall we try?
Let's.
Yeah. It's a very vibrant package.
Yeah.
It's at the can. We've got 2 bottles. Well, we've got. I don't know. Oh, that's the other thing. So we went with. I mean, we've already explained it. We went with multinational, regional, and now we have local.
Fully local.
Yeah.
It's literally their slogan too. I think it's
Brewed
like
in Bali.
no
Where?
drink.
Drink fresh, drink local.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Doesn't say it. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take your word for that.
Okay.
All right. And wow! Immediately, I feel like the carbonation of this one's much higher, and the color is a little bit lighter.
Yes, much lighter than the other.
Yeah. So as we were pouring, we noticed a little bit of yeast come out in that last one.
Last pour.
That was the first time I think I've ever noticed that.
Yeah. So that's a clearer one, and I keep getting the yeasty boys.
Which is your favorite?
I don't know. I'm a millennial.
Yeah, MCA all the way.
Smell it first. What smell comes to mind? Oh, pineapple. Pineapple. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I'm going to sip on it.
Definitely tropical aroma, but a different kind of taste. It's like a candy-like taste.
Yeah. Can I try?
Sure. There you go. It's candy-like taste. Almost like a, what do they call them? Jolly Ranchers, those sort of things.
Okay. At the top of my head, I feel like there is a bit more bitterness on this one compared to the other 2.
A more bitterness?
A more bitterness?
Yeah.
A more bitterness.
That's a more.
It's a tad bitter than the other 2. Which not overpoweringly so, but there is that. Which I think like a lot of people will enjoy that. Yeah.
Well, that colour I love. Out of the 3, I think I like this colour and clarity the most. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Although obviously yours is a little bit hazier. Definitely pineapple and tropical.
Coconutty bit, I feel
possibly.
like. That's me.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. Persepsi rasa tuh agak berbeda between people. So.
Very much so. I do like the mouthfeel in this.
Yeah.
I like the mouthfeel, and I feel like maybe it's more carbonated than the other two.
Yeah. The carbonation's fine.
I feel like out of the three, the Lion's the most aromatic. Maybe in an aromatic way.
No, it's different. This is I felt like this was pineapple-y aromatic. Like
Oh no,
full
definitely.
on,
But in terms of aromatic volume, I feel like this had more of an intensity, whereas this one was a nice aroma but different. The Kura.
Okay. I feel like maybe I guess intensity wise I think that the Lion one is a tad intense, but I still feel like this is quite an intense pineapple-y coconut.
And I can see, when you talk about overall impressions, I can see why. The packaging, the aromas, the carbonation. You think barley.
Yeah, and
right?
it's also
you think of the beach. Yeah.
And it's also the color of this, like pretty much.
Yeah.
Explains the whole tropical aroma.
I wouldn't say explains, but you anticipate something.
Not explains.
You anticipate it.
Yeah. But color-wise, I like the color on this. Yeah.
So, enjoy it? Yeah. I think so. I enjoyed. There's elements that I enjoyed about all three of them.
Yeah.
Out of today's three, I enjoyed this one the most.
Okay.
And I think I feel maybe because my palate enjoys those particular hop aromas that I detected in this.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, with the slightly candy-like ones, maybe not so much. But I can see why people would love it.
I do.
Yeah. Your people. you people.
Oh, you can't say that.
Yeah. But yeah, so again, other people will try it and they'll go love Little Creatures, and that's fine.
I like the mouthfeel
variety is the spice of life.
That is true. Variety is the spice of life. I like the mouthfeel of the Little Creatures one. Yeah. And this one's crisper. Same with this, and I do like the candy pineapple flavor on this.
Cool. Well, those are three available pale ales in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Pretty broadly available these days, although this one occasionally goes out of supply.
Yeah.
But these two are locally produced, so they should be constantly in supply around Indonesia. So what we've just done is we've got three beers from the fridge and we've tried them side by side, and they're all from one style and they're all available in Indonesia, and they all represent different aspects of craft beer. And one other part of what we're trying to do is rebrew them. So we're going to pick one of these and we're going to try and
mimic.
I was trying to think of the word. No, it failed me. Replicate it, probably replicate the... Yeah, that's the word I was after. Yeah. Replicate the recipe somehow with the limitations that I have and the limitations that we have in terms of access to ingredients in Indonesia. But maybe what we want to try and do is pick one of these to rebrew and then get a few other people's opinions and say, is this pretty accurate in terms of the style and in terms of the beer? And one of the things that we're trying to do there is show, hey, anyone can, with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of experience, particularly experience, I think, more than anything, can go, hey, I can try and brew this at home.
Yep.
So with that in mind, the fact that we're going to rebrew one of these, which one do you think would be an appropriate choice?
Okay. I mean, this is my opinion. I don't think we should do this simply because you do know the ingredients that go into that.
Generally, yeah. Unless they've changed it. Yeah.
And probably,
same with that one.
Yeah. Probably the same with this.
Disclosure: we do know the brewers and the recipes that went into these two.
Generally,
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
And I think then maybe by default we're going to try and rebrew this one.
Yeah.
So I'll get to it then.
We shall.
Yes, and hopefully be able to do this justice with something that approaches roughly the same characteristics that people would expect in a Little Creatures pale ale.
Yeah.
And I might just call it miniature beings.
So we'll see you in the next episode where we try and brew Little Creatures.
Pale ale.
Pale ale.
Yeah.
See you from the fermenter.